Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tay, and today we are discussing Taylor Swift sister songs. It's actually 3 songs, so I guess it is sibling songs, perhaps. I know a lot of other people have done videos like this, so I don't know if I need to credit someone for the idea. Obviously, it's not my own original idea, but everything I'm going to say about these 3 songs is my own thoughts and conclusions. So, what 3 songs are we looking at, pray tell? Call It What You Want, The Lakes, and So Long London. These 3 songs, they're all from black and white albums, which doesn't mean anything, but it is interesting. But they're all connected, at least in my brain. They tell a story. So I'm going to start with general links I think these songs share, and then analyze them in pairs to give this video an amount of structure. So these songs are all pretty different in terms of their production. Call It What You Want is a pop song, The Lakes is more indie, almost acoustic, and So Long London, I don't really know what she is, but she's very synth heavy, but not exactly a pop song. But despite these differences, they do have quite a few similarities. There is some overlap in their production, which I'll get into, and also all these songs have a similar tone and delivery. The tone of all 3 songs is very bittersweet. She's mourning something she's lost, but also celebrating something she's gained. On Call It What You Want and The Lakes, she's mourning her cancellation and kind of the loss of her career, but she's celebrating her love of her man. On So Long London, she's mourning the loss of her man, but there is some amount of bittersweetness. It feels like she got a weight off her chest. Also, the story being told on these songs is connected. Like, they're all pieces of the same story, and we can look at Call It What You Want as the beginning, The Lakes as the middle, and So Long London as the end. The relationship with Joe, I think, could kind of be explained by these 3 songs. Obviously, some context would be missing, but, it covers all the important pieces. Their chaotic beginning, how they got together, their time during the pandemic, and why it ultimately didn't work out, which is why I'm calling these songs the trilogy, or a trilogy. So let's look at Call It What You Want and The Lakes. The sun keeps disappearing, so I know the lighting is a little weird, I apologize. I'll try to fix it if I can. But anyway, Call It What You Want and The Lakes. These 2 songs, in my brain, are like twins. They are almost the same song. So Long London is kind of like the older sister, but she's still connected. These 2 songs sound really similar, have almost an identical structure, and they tell pretty much the same story. The strings in the background of Call It What You Want, in my opinion, sound so similar to the strings used in The Lakes. It's not identical, but I think it's similar enough that, for me, these songs have been connected in my mind for a while. The verses are very slow, and they have sort of a hollow production that makes them feel very intimate and vulnerable. The beat picks up on the choruses, but slows back down again during the bridge. And both songs have a long musical outro with her repeating Call It What You Want and No Not Without You, respectively. Both songs talk about her heartache over the cancellation and how her newfound love has allowed her to escape from that heartache. She hasn't completely healed from it. It still weighs on her quite a bit, but she's able to forget about it when she's with her partner, at least in moments. So let's compare lyrics. In Call It What You Want, she says, all the liars are calling me one, and mentions the drama queens taking swings and jokers dressing up as kings. These are obviously referring to Kim and Kanye, but also the media and internet. In The Lakes, these are the name-dropping sleaze, cynical clones, and hunters with cell phones. To describe her heartache, she says, all my flowers grew back as thorns, windows boarded up after the storm. She used to have these beautiful flowers, which are a metaphor for a more optimistic and idealistic view of the world. Those flowers have been replaced by thorns, showing that she's less trusting and not as hopeful as she used to be. On The Lakes, she says, what should be over burrowed under my skin in heart-stopping waves of hurt. So again, explaining how the cancellation affected her and how the pain has become like a physical part of her that she can't remove. Also, the description of thorns and the pain burrowing under her skin are very visceral ways of describing how she has been affected by the situation. We do see some growth in the lakes, because she adds, a red rose grew up out of ice-frozen ground, with no one around to tweet it. Obviously, roses have thorns, right? But I think this is also showing that even though she can't fully move past the situation, it's gotten easier to bear. Like, this is clearly a metaphor for perseverance, and we could see this as her flowers starting to come back. The thorns are always going to be there, but the flowers she might have thought were gone for good are coming back. And that is why I think of the lakes as the second part of this story, whereas Call It What You Want is the beginning. Call It What You Want is a bit more vulnerable. Her wounds feel very raw and a bit more recent. Whereas on the lakes, it's almost like she's embracing the sadness and melancholy. She says, I want auroras and sad prose. I want to bathe in cliffside pools with my calamitous love and insurmountable grief. Which is foreshadowing So Long London, I fear, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Both of these songs also emphasize how her lover is able to take her mind away from the pain of reality. On Call It What You Want, she says, you don't need to save me, but would you run away with me? The lakes is them running away. So again, first and second part of the story. Some other lines are, he built a fire just to keep me warm, they fade to nothing when I look at him, and starry eyes sparking up my darkest night. On the lakes, she says, I'm setting off, but not without my muse, and I want to watch wisteria grow right over my bare feet, because I haven't moved in years. And I want you right here, which is a very elaborate way of saying, I want to stay in this moment with you forever. He is her escape in both of these songs. So now let's look at Call It What You Want and So Long London. So Long London doesn't share as much production-wise with the other two songs. However, when Tortured Poets first came out, a lot of people noticed that the intro vocals to Call It What You Want and So Long London are very similar. It's hard to describe. Unfortunately, YouTube is pretty strict about copyright, otherwise I'd put the clips I'm talking about for you to hear. The best way I can explain it is the vocals sound echoey, almost like you are falling, if that makes sense. And the timing of the vocals is very similar. If you go listen to the first 10 seconds of these two songs, you'll probably hear the similarity. In terms of lyrics, there's not as much to say about these two, but I did make some discoveries, and they're pretty sad. She opens So Long London with, I saw in my mind fairy lights through the mist, which could be a way of saying his starry eyes have faded, and she was holding out hope the sparks would come back, but they never did. In that same vein, she used to say, I'm laughing with my lover, making forts under covers. But eventually, she stopped trying to make him laugh, stopped trying to drill the safe. And this next one's rough. He built a fire just to keep me warm, and I left all I knew, you left me at the house by the heath. It's not right! It's not okay. So Call It What You Want shows us that things weren't always like this. There's been an ongoing theme of sadness in her relationship with Joe. It's in Miss Americana, The Lakes, Lavender Haze, Sweet Nothing, and I'm sure plenty of others, but these parallels and clues from other songs make it seem like Joe has become more depressed over time, and that's part of the reason it didn't work out. So how much sad did you think I had in me? Just how low did you think I'd go before I'd have to go be free? It's almost like he wants her to be sad, not like he's trying to upset her. But, you know, he's an art bro. He likes a certain kind of angst and drama, is what I've gathered from these songs. Like, literally a tortured poet, dare I say. There's also a lack of commitment between these two songs. Like, when she says call it what you want, she's clearly talking about the media and the internet who are going to make up all kinds of stories about her and Joe and what their relationship is, but it's commonly used as a way of saying, we don't have a label on this relationship. You can call it what you want. This is most likely an unfortunate coincidence, but given that So Long London tells us the relationship ended basically because he wouldn't propose, it's really ironic that Call It What You Want is one of their first love songs. So now we can look at The Lakes and So Long London. Unfortunately, I don't have any comparisons to make regarding the production of these songs, but don't you worry, because there are so many lyrical and thematic parallels. It really feels like she foreshadowed her death on Tortured Poets in The Lakes. She says, is it romantic how all my elegies eulogize me? Typically, a eulogy is given after a person has died, right? Also, take me to the lakes where all the poets went to die suggests that wherever she is will eventually be her resting place. Like, I want to do what these poets did, and I want to live out the rest of my life in this space, away from the hostility of the world, and, you know, die peacefully. I want to watch wisteria grow right over my bare feet because I haven't moved in years. Also evokes a feeling of death. You know, she's not moving and has become part of nature. So Long London is not so on the nose. She's literally telling us she died. I stopped CPR after all, it's no use. The spirit was gone, we would never come to. Also, 2 graves, 1 gun, and I died on the altar, waiting for the proof. She romanticizes sadness and also death in the lakes. She's insisting that she wants the sadness, and also that she wants to stay in this moment forever with her partner. Those Windermere Peaks look like a perfect place to cry. I bathe in cliffside pools with my calamitous love and insurmountable grief. And I want auroras and sad prose. It's like she's saying, I am endlessly sad and I wouldn't have it any other way. On So Long London, she has kind of realized this sadness is both too much and not enough for her. You know, how much sad did you think I had in me? And you sacrificed us to the gods of your bluest days. These songs are interesting to compare because they point out how Taylor lies, both to the audience but also to herself at times. In The Lakes, she seems happy to have given up, you know, her life as a pop star and just live out her life in a cottage in London. But in So Long London, she seems resentful. I left all I knew, you left me at the house by the heath. So what is the truth? I think she wanted a certain level of fame but was afraid to go after it. Like, if she tried to chase after it, Joe would have probably left her, and if she wasn't able to get it, she'd lose both of these things that were really important for her. So it seems like she compromised and kind of convinced herself that it was her time to go in regards to, like, her career. So I do think her feelings on the lakes in that moment were real, but people change, you know, and I think both of them changed. So Long London suggests that Joe got more depressed and pulled away from her, and at the same time she realized she did need her career and the fame more than she had been admitting. You say I abandoned the ship, but I was going down with it. Clearly she's the one who left him, right? But I wonder if this also alludes to her abandoning the ship, as in going on a 2-year tour where they would be apart for very long periods of time. I already mentioned how Call It What You Want and The Lakes both talk about her heartache from the cancellation. On So Long London, she hints at the fact that she is kind of broken free from this pain. When she says, and I'm just getting color back into my face, I think it's talking about her getting back some of what she lost during that time. Like, the pain and the distrust from the situation will probably always live in her, but the success of Folklore and everything that came after, like, woke something up in her. Like, this hunger to be back on stage and back in the public eye. Stitches Undone kind of hints at this as well. Like, he was really her lifeline during the cancellation, and so losing him was probably extremely confusing. It probably brought up memories from the cancellation. Like, her time with Joe was probably some of the only moments of happiness she had during that time. And now those memories have probably soured. That's just how it is when you lose, like, a lover or a friend. The memories just hurt. That's how we ended up with Call It What You Want, angry version. All right, in conclusion, Call It What You Want tells us the beginning of the story, how Joe rescued her from her cancellation, and how he made her feel new and loved in a time when the world pretty much threw her away. In The Lakes, she tells us that she's not yet over the pain the world caused her, but she is starting to appreciate it with help from her beau. I just wanted to say beau, sorry. There are perhaps details missing, like her realization that she could get her career back. Like, she didn't lose it, right? But it was definitely not the same after the cancellation. Without that realization, we might not have So Long London. So maybe put Bejeweled in here if you really want to. I think for a while she was comfortable with Joe and what her life with him was gonna look like, but then they both changed like midnight rain. It's interesting to see the red flags in Call It What You Want and The Lakes, especially because most of them were probably accidental. It feels like he put her in a position where she had to choose him or her celebrity status, and she chose him, but then he didn't choose her. Like, I think she was ready to give it all up if he had just proposed. If one thing had been different, would everything be different? Alright, so that, to me, is the story being told by Call It What You Want, The Lakes, and So Long London. Thank y'all so much for watching, and let me know down below if you have any insights about these 3 songs. Are there any songs you would add to this trilogy? Let me know. All right.